Welcome to Think About It with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on my podcast, Think About It with Jaden Miller. I'm glad that you guys joined me today on this beautiful Sunday in Phoenix, Arizona. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. I need you guys to check me out on there. If you like to watch video, feel free. And you can also like and comment and follow me on your favorite podcast platform. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Castbox, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, all of your favorite podcast platforms. You guys can find me. I strive to drop new episodes every Sunday and Wednesday. So again, thank you guys for joining me. What am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk a little bit about this Jussie Smollett case, or maybe I should call it the Jussie Smollett assault hoax. Okay. I'm sure that you all have heard just last week he was convicted in a Cook County court by a jury of his peers that decided that he was untruthful in detailing the incident that he alleged happened to him. So let's just go back and talk about the incident real quick, and we'll talk about, the finding of guilty, and then what happens to Jussie Smollett now. All right. So just as a reminder, on January 29, 2019, Jussie Smollett reported to the Chicago Police Department that he had been assaulted, during the early morning hours. And when I say early morning hours, I'm talking about like 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Now, when I say January 29, 2019, he was assaulted in the early morning hours in Chicago Streeterville neighborhood. I want you to think about it now. I just said in Chicago. All right. January 29th, 2019 in Chicago. Okay. Where the temperature because of course I grew up in Chicago, the temperature in January can be sub-zero. The wind chill factor can be 30-40 degrees below zero. And I can assure you that on this night, January 29, 2019, it was an extremely cold night in Chicago with that cold, frozen snow on the ground that tends to never melt, at least not until March or April, okay? All right, so this is what he said. He said that he was assaulted. He said that that his attackers were 2 white men, wearing MAGA hats, Make America Great Again, those hats that were popularized by Donald Trump and his supporters. All right. He claimed they had shouted racial and homophobic slurs, poured an unknown chemical substance on him, possibly bleach, and then tied a noose around his neck. All right. So this is what he reported to the Chicago police. All right. Let's go back in time. On January 22nd, about 7 days prior to this, a letter arrived at Jussie Smollett's Chicago studio. Now, you guys should remember Jussie Smollett is an actor, or maybe I should say was an actor, but let's just be positive. He he is an actor, and he starred in the hit TV show at the time, Empire, very, very popular show that was filmed, or at least part of it was filmed in the city of Chicago. All right. So on January 22nd, 2019, a letter arrived at his Chicago studio, and it was addressed to Jussie Smollett and depicted a stick figure hanging from a tree with a gun pointing towards it. It read, "Smollett, Jussie, you will die," and MAGA, and contained a white powder determined to be Tylenol. So this preceded the incident that happened on January 29th. All right. So initially, after the public found out about this alleged assault, public figures expressed widespread support for Jussie Smollett. So you had Democratic senators at the time. Of course, she's now Vice President Kamala Harris. You had Cory Booker that provided support, or at least public support, to him. Viola Davis, who's an actor. Shonda Rhimes, who's created those wonderful TV shows. Grey's Grey's something. I forget what it is, but the one that comes on ABC, the hospital. But anyway, just all of those kinds of shows. All right. Grey's Anatomy. That's right. And then Private Practice and a whole bunch of other series. She's very, very well known. All right. All of them came out in support of Jussie Smollett. But even Donald Trump came out in support of him. Okay. He said that he thought it was horrible. And, there were so many people, all right, that came out, providing him with support. All right. So that was the initial public reaction. All right. Now, that's the initial public reaction. Of course, when the police are investigating, all right, the police know some things that, the general public doesn't know. And police, I can't say by nature, but by profession, are very, very skeptical. Okay. All right. And I'll get into that in just a moment. All right. So now this happens January 29th, public reaction on January 30th. The police are investigating. Okay. Now, a couple of weeks later, on February 13th, 2019, the Chicago Police Department raided the home of two persons of interest in the case. They were two Nigerian immigrant brothers who had acted as extras on the Empire studio, the Empire show. All right. Police recovered bleach and other items from the home. Police found video of them at a hardware store purchasing items, that seemed to be very similar to those that Jussie Smollett had in his possession. All right. Financial records based upon this investigation found that that Jussie Smollett had provided both brothers $3,500. To stage the attack. Financial records indicated that the brothers purchased the rope found around Jussie Smollett's neck at a hardware store over the weekend of January 25th. They were seen in security camera footage in a clothing store where they bought gloves and ski masks and a red hat that police said was used in the attack. All right. It says the brothers asked specifically for a MAGA hat, which the store does not sell. All right. So we had all of this evidence now that is coming forward. All right. On February 20th now. Well, let me go back. So now after all of this evidence is coming forward, the court of public opinion is starting to turn against Jussie Smollett. All right. People are starting to ask lots of questions. For example, okay, as we think about it and scratch our heads. So it's January. Late January in Chicago. It's a very, very cold night. Chicago is a Democratic city. Chicago is a minority city. And I hate to use the word minority, but what I mean by that is that blacks and Hispanics and other ethnic groups are the majority of the population in the city of Chicago. The white population is not. Okay. And then also in this area, in this neighborhood, it would be very unlikely. Okay. Especially at this time of day, for someone pretending to be Trump supporters or two white men wearing MAGA hats to be in that area. It's a little bit suspicious, okay? But then also when you put together all of this other evidence, you have these Nigerian brothers, $3,500 is being paid to them. Now the police have them in custody, okay? And the police are questioning them. And they are now putting together all of the other pieces that might have been splintered. They're putting them together. All right. So now on February 20th, 2019, Jussie Smollett was charged by a grand jury with the class 4 felony of filing a false police report. All right. Police superintendent, or at least then police superintendent Eddie Johnson, gives a press conference where he gives details about the investigation. And, he makes mention that these brothers have come forward, with so much more information about how, Jussie Smollett got them to help stage the attack. All right. Jussie Smollett's initial bail was set at $100,000. A friend paid it the $10,000 bond, and he was released from custody on February 21st. He was required to surrender his passport. Okay, so then on March 8th, Smollett was indicted on 16 felony counts of false report of offense relating to the incident. Not only that, the city of Chicago was really upset with Jussie Smollett, all right? And then they filed a lawsuit against him because of all of the time and effort that the police department utilized because of this hoax, all right? So let's talk about the hoax, okay, for a second, all right? I want you to think about it now. Think about all of the people that have been harmed in some kind of way because of racism. I mean, let's look back historically. The noose means something, okay, especially to African Americans. It means something to all ethnic groups because hangings happen all over this nation, okay, to whites and Latinos and Indians and, of course, African Americans as well, all right? But it has a significant meaning to African American people because so many black men were lynched using a rope, in the history of this country. All right. So now imagine a black man lying about this. Okay, lying and saying that there were some imaginative people out there, that, accosted him, threw him to the ground, poured bleach on him, put a noose around his neck. Well, when initially contacted by the first officer on the scene, guess what he still had on his neck? The noose. Okay. Now, if you've been accosted by someone and they put something around your neck, which can be harmful to you, well, there's a tendency, I would believe, to take it off, not to leave it on. Okay. It's just like bleach. I mean, if somebody poured bleach on you, aren't you going to try the best you can and wipe it off to get it off? You can say, okay, well, maybe he's preserving evidence. Not. You don't leave a noose around your neck. Okay. You don't leave bleach on your skin. Okay. This is absolutely ridiculous. All right. And so the fact that he came up with this hoax to say that he was a victim of such an assault certainly does no good for those that are victims of assault like this. See, there are people out there that don't want to believe African Americans when they say that they're assaulted in a racial way anyway. So this really, really harmed that investigation. All right. Now, as we move forward on March 26th, the Cook County State's Attorney decides that they're going to drop charges against Jussie Smollett. All right. Now, there's a lot of wrangling going on, and Kim Fox, who is the Cook County State's Attorney, and for those of you that don't know, a state's attorney is just like a district attorney. OK, well, first of all, she gives advice to some of his people on his team. And so she had to recuse herself. It was just a big, crazy, mixed up, foolish court matter that was just crazy. So anyway, lots of attorneys, including the Illinois Prosecutors Bar Association, they said that the dismissal was highly unusual. All right. And so so in August 23rd of 2019, after so many complaints, and then after a former appellate judge in Illinois came forward and made the case, well, then a judge in Illinois appointed former United States Attorney Dan K. Webb as the special prosecutor to review Jussie Smollett's case and the events leading to the charges being dropped. All right. And so as a result of that, Webb announced now in 2020, after his investigation, new charges against Jussie Smollett. And so he was indicted on 6 counts of felony disorderly conduct for lying to the police. All right. So he's arrested, then the charges are dropped, and then almost a year later, new charges are announced against him. All right. And so now he faces all of these charges. All right. So now we know the circumstances. You know that Jussie Smollett now is going to go to court to find out what a jury has to say to him. All right. So now he hires his attorney. And then, of course, Dan Webb is going to represent the state of Illinois, the people of the state of Illinois versus Jussie Smollett. All right. Let's talk about some reaction to this incident. As you know, we talked about him being an actor. His character was subsequently removed from the final 2 episodes of Empire's 5th season. The studio stated on April 30th of 2019 that at this time there were no plans for the character of Jamal to return to Empire. That was the name of his character. Fox announced the Empire that Empire will be canceled at the end of season 6. Jussie Smollett claimed that he had an untreated drug problem, his use of ecstasy. He stated that he did not have any issues with alcohol or his mental health. So now, following his arraignment, okay, as I just mentioned to you, Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson in a press conference says, why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? All right. How could someone look at the hatred and suffering associated with that symbol and see an opportunity to manipulate that symbol to further his own public profile? All right. How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face with these false claims? Bogus police reports cause real harm. Those were the words of Eddie Johnson, the former Chicago police superintendent. All right. Yes, I agree. These allegations were shameful. Okay. Or at least this hoax was shameful. All right. Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson went on to say just recently after the convictions, and I'll talk about those in a minute, he said that, one of the things that was the turning point for him, in this case was the fact that Jussie Smollett went to a Subway sandwich shop, purchased it, but then when he was questioned by the police, when he of course he had it on his way back to his apartment, but when he's questioned by the police, it is still intact, perfectly made, not messed up. Think about it for a minute. If you're assaulted by 2 white men wearing MAGA hats in the city of Chicago in some of the coldest temperatures, all right, you're going to hold on to your sandwich, your Subway sandwich. You're not going to try to fight back. I mean, if you're being tussled around, it isn't going to fall from your hands, okay? But this sandwich is perfectly intact, okay? That's when Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson said, I knew that something was wrong here. He knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong, right after they announced what happened. Because again, being from the city of Chicago, I damn well know, okay, there are not going to be white men in the Streeterville or Ravenswood neighborhood of Chicago in some of the coldest temperatures of the beginning of the year, but certainly for the winter season in Chicago at 2:00 in the morning, and just so happen, okay, to see Jussie Smollett, okay, who happens to be well known and a famous actor, okay? The odds of that are slim, and I knew right from the very beginning that it was not going to bode well for Jussie Smollett. All right, as I mentioned, the city of Chicago in March of 2019, they sent Jussie Smollett a demand letter requiring him to repay the city the sum of $130,000. He refused to. So then in April of 2019, the city of Chicago filed a lawsuit in Circuit Court of Cook County against Smollett for the cost of overtime authorities extended investigating the alleged attack. All right. The Osundere brothers, those are the Nigerians. I failed to mention their names, but their last name is Osundero. Okay, they filed a federal defamation lawsuit against Smollett's legal team in April of 2019. So lots has gone on in this case. All right. So as you all know, many of you heard that just last week, Jussie Smollett was found guilty of falsely reporting a hate crime. So there were 6 charges against him. All right. He was found guilty on 5 felony counts of making a false police report that he was the victim of a hate crime, filing a false police report he was the victim of a battery, and then the filing of these false reports are two different individuals. One was a police officer in the city of Chicago, and one to a detective. And so these false reports added up to 6. He was found guilty of 5 of them. All right. So now these disorderly conduct charges for a false crime report is class 4 felonies, punishable by up to 3 years in prison and a $25,000 fine. So the Cook County judge that oversaw the case will have discretion in imposing a concurrent or a consecutive sentence for each count at a later date. While in court, one of the Nigerian brothers sat expressionless as Smollett's verdict was read. His other brother was not in court because he was scheduled to fight in a boxing match later that day. When the verdict was read, Jussie Smollett appeared rigid after the verdict was read. He did not move and was seen gazing straight ahead. His fingers were interlaced in his hands on the table straight in front of him. He didn't look at his family, the judge, or anyone except for straight ahead in the direction of the jury. All right. Well, this case was a long time coming. All right. The jury, the 12-person jury, deliberated for more than 9 hours over last Wednesday and Thursday before they came up with their verdict. All right. Filing false reports is horrible. Okay. It takes up a lot of police time. If it's a criminal thing, it takes up a lot of other people's time. It takes a lot of emotionalism away. It causes people to worry. And then, of course, for victims of hate crime, okay, when we find that it is bogus, all right, well, see, any other time there's a hate crime that comes up, then there's people out there that are always suspicious, critical, skeptics, okay, that wonder if something like this really happened, just based upon what Jussie Smollett did. All right, so that's why it does not pay, and it is horrible, whether it's, sexual assault, whether it's racial, that people don't lie about these things in order to build themselves up or to find, sympathy. It's a horrible thing to do. So now what happens to Jussie Smollett? Well, there are some people that are saying that the judge should definitely give him a sentence. All right. That's because what he did was he exposed himself to jail time. The judge could certainly give him probation, but there are some people that are calling for him to actually spend some time in jail. All right. Now, Jussie Smollett does not have a criminal record, so the chances of him going to jail or to prison for any amount of time is small. All right. When you don't have any contact with the criminal justice system, if you've never had any convictions or anything, then more than likely a court is not going to send you to prison. Okay, depending on the charges, of course. These are considered to be, even though they're now felonies, they're minor felonies, if that makes any sense to you. And so these are not felonies. People lie every day. Okay, and even though you're not supposed to lie in a court of law, people lie in a court of law every day. It's just that Jussie Smollett got caught, doing so, and people are really bringing it forward. And that's because so many people are just astounded, that he's continued with this hoax. I mean, there is a plethora of evidence against him, okay? But he still perpetuates this lie that it did happen to me, that, well, as a black man, I'm afraid of the police. And so that's why I didn't, participate, in the earlier on investigations. And again, I call hogwash to that. All right. You are a victim. OK. And the city of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department treated you as a victim for weeks. They treated you as a victim, okay? And at any time, and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson said this just the other day, that if you would have simply came forward and apologized and said, I made this up, that they would have dropped the charges. So none of this, you being found guilty, true, you may have had to pay back the $130,000, okay? But dude, you could have let the lie go, all right? You could have moved on with your life. Now, you may have looked bad in the public eye for a while, but, the American public is very forgiving, okay? And especially to people that are high profile, very, very forgiving, okay? And so you could have bounced back. You've got a supportive family, a supportive network, but you continue to perpetuate this lie. And it is time to stop because people are sick and tired of it. So all of the fan base that you had, has diminished. There are a few people that are still supporting you and believe that, I don't trust and, it could happen. Well, again, the evidence speaks. And as an African-American man, I would definitely be in your corner if I felt that something's not right or, the police bungled this or you're being mistreated. But as an African-American man, I can also call out another one, when there's just foolishness going on your part. And then I have to think about the untold amount of other African-Americans who have been victimized or who have not been believed. And the many more that could not be believed just because of your stupid actions. So, Jussie Smollett, your name is going to go down, unfortunately, as, the purveyor of a hoax, a really bad hoax. I hope that at some point you find the courage to come forward and just state that, hey, I made this up, I'm sorry, and again, there is an untold amount of people that are willing to forgive and move forward with this. So anyway, Jussie Smollett found guilty last week on 5 of the 6 counts of felony disorderly conduct. He's facing 3 years in prison and then a whole bunch of lawsuits against him as well. So the takeaway from this again is be honest, be truthful, don't lie. All right, about stuff. If you are the victim of a crime, report it. But if you are looking for sympathy, if you're feeling bad about yourself, if your career is suffering, then seek therapy. All right, this is Jaden Miller. All right, thank you for joining me on Think About It with Jaden Miller. Please don't forget, like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. I appreciate you all listening. Thank you again. It's a wonderful Sunday here in Phoenix, Arizona. My next episode is Wednesday. I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.